pride ourselves on being agile enough to hear the feedback and act, right? Like we've grown so much. When I started in Q4 of 2020, there was a little bit less than 1,000 employees at iSolved, and now we're quickly approaching 3,000. But it's
Wow.
really important, yeah, to our CEO to be, that big enough to deliver and small enough to care. And so that customer feedback is not only, asked for and accepted and acted on with marketing, but also our product too. I believe, hopefully, I'm not misquoting this, about 40% of our releases this last year came from direct customer feedback. And so that's really important to us.
Welcome to the Brand Brief podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and key strategies that are driving brand growth. This podcast is powered by Brand Method Media Group, and I'm your host, Kelly Kelly. Today's guest is Amberly Dressler, VP of Corporate Marketing at iSolved, a leading HCM technology company that serves over 8 million employees and 195,000 employers by helping what they call people heroes, HR, payroll, and benefits professionals streamline everything from talent acquisition to workforce management. Welcome to the show, Amberly.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
So let's set some context by learning more about your role as VP of Corporate Marketing at iSolve and some of your key responsibilities.
Great, thank you. So I lead corporate marketing, and that includes communications and content and web and SEO, events, and gosh, a lot of different responsibilities to help elevate the experience of our people heroes too. So community and advocacy and references as well.
Awesome. Now, speaking of people's heroes, iSolved has built their brand around the concept of people heroes. So again, this is HR, payroll, and benefits professionals. How does this positioning, how did this positioning come about, and how does it drive your marketing strategy?
So in Q4 of 2020, we really looked at the organization and thought, how do we make a bigger splash in the HCM industry? And one of the things we kept hearing over and over is how HR, benefits, payroll, talent is a very lonely job. A lot of times, those folks are seen as compliance and the people kind of who come in to ruin fun. And we really wanted to elevate who they are within the organization and all of the amazing, powerful work they're doing. And so we had a small working group to decide what that looked like from an external point of view. And, over a lot of iterations as it happens, we came up with the concept of people heroes. And it's amazing to see our customers embrace it so much. We've been, on the road for several years now in big cities, small cities, visiting our customers, and they'll show up in the pink, which is very indicative of our brand, and also with capes on. And they just really, really embraced the brand of people heroes. And, during the time, if we think back to Q4 2020, it was in the thick of the pandemic, of course, and our HR, benefits, talent, and payroll professionals were asked to do more and more. And for often kind of the first time in that role, they had their seat at the table, so to speak. And so it was a time to really elevate their role and their perception within the business. And then since then, it's just taken off into our community as well, where folks are helping each other, and from everything from I just took on HR in Alaska. How do you write a handbook here to how do you pull this report within iSolve? So it's become a brand of its own, and it's just so rewarding to see our customers embrace it so much.
What a natural like brand positioning, I guess, given the industry, probably given the time period when people needed something to sort of reignite the core of what this is about, right? You guys, it's people at the core, right?
Definitely. I love the way you put that. And, these people heroes are very much about people, not to overuse that word, but so it's so indicative of their position to see how much they're helping their peers who are also customers too. And it's just such a giving role. And it just has shown up in the market and in our community and in what we do in so many unique ways.
Now, which strategies in terms of marketing have proven most effective in reaching and engaging your target audience and in the HCM space?
Yeah, I would have to say it's our customer stories. One of our analyst firms that we work with recently called us the kings of customer storytelling, and that's a badge of honor that we really appreciate and something that we are humbled by because we have, gone to these organizations and taken more of like a brand journalism approach to how we tell their stories. So, for example, we recently released a book that was both a work of fiction and nonfiction about a fictional character named Jen who goes into an organization where they're losing employees left and right. They can't get top applicants and everything. So it follows her transformational story. But then also those nonfiction stories of our people heroes are woven in as well. We've taken this brand journalism approach to customer documentaries too. So we've gone on site with our customers to really film their employees, the people heroes, their business owners, and tell their stories in unique ways. And iSolved serves the smaller market, up to 2,500 employees tends to be our sweet spot. And sometimes they're companies that are overlooked rather because they aren't, the big brands of the world, but they have such great stories to tell. This week, for example, my team was on site at a customer who helps with the power grids of space shuttles that have gone to the moon. And it's such a
Wow.
humble, yeah, like almost manufacturing type workshop. They don't have a ton of employees, but this humble company has literally brought us to the moon. And so telling their stories in authentic and unique ways has really, I think, helped us not only define the People Heroes brand a little bit more, but then also help iSolve differentiate in the market.
For sure. So, with your team, as you mentioned, you guys do tons of things. You guys are managing event marketing, you're also doing analyst relations. How do you ensure consistent messaging and brand experience across all your different channels, especially as we transition even more post-pandemic, where digital in-person touchpoints have shifted a bit?
Yeah, I would say two things come to mind there. One is we have a really strong messaging framework for iSolve that we live and breathe by in terms of what our message is to the market, who we serve, how we serve them, what are our headline benefits. And so it's kind of the core of what we do both internally and externally. And then from an events perspective, we we very much want to be where our people heroes are. And to double click on that a little bit more, for example, between 2022 and 2024, we visited hundreds of cities across the US for what we called our People Heroes Tour or customer roadshows, as most people refer to them as, where it was a half day. We had people on site from customer success and optimization to help them, pull a report maybe that they were struggling with, or maybe their system was set up before they got on site. So we have people there to help them, customize it to what they wanted to. We'd have product leaders, marketing leaders, customer success leaders there to share what we're investing in, hear from them. And so that really like grassroots, like on the ground approach has been really, really important to us. And then this year we evolved it a little bit more to have these regional customer conferences. And we actually split up our customer and partner conference because the feedback we received was when we're together, we feel that while the content is great, you're not speaking to me. And so we've split that apart. And, we're constantly evolving what that approach is to events because, in the past, the road shows were what the customers wanted. And then they, asked to be around even more customers. So we brought the regional events. And now what we're hearing from them is they're missing that smaller city stops that we used to have. So from Dubuque, Iowa to Allentown, Pennsylvania, they want us to be where they are. And so that might evolve next year a little bit more.
And how amazing is that to be able to get such feedback and the company be supportive of that instead of this being like, this is how we do it. This is a wash, rinse, and repeat in terms of our events. We might change the lineup, but we're not splitting out. You guys are taking this feedback, and I'm sure it's a heavy lift to split, but it seems as though the outcome is the long term is better in terms of reward and supporting the community that supports you all.
Yeah, we pride ourselves on being agile enough to hear the feedback and act, right? Like we've grown so much. When I started in Q4 of 2020, there was a little bit less than 1,000 employees at iSolved, and now we're quickly approaching 3,000. But it's
Wow.
really important, yeah, to our CEO to be, that big enough to deliver and small enough to care. And so that customer feedback is not only, asked for and accepted and acted on with marketing, but also our product too. I believe, hopefully, I'm not misquoting this, about 40% of our releases this last year came from direct customer feedback. And so that's really important to us.
Yeah, that's incredible. So iSolved has been active with some pretty notable acquisitions, including recent talent acquisition companies. How does marketing play a role in M&A integration, and how do you maintain brand consistency while incorporating these new capabilities?
That's a great question. Yes, so iSolved has been the majority owner in Applicant Pro for a while now. And then this year we fully brought them over into the brand and business, now forming iSolved Talent Acquisition, formerly Applicant Pro. And for us, particularly with Applicant Pro, the customers just aligned really well. And, our good friends at Sapient with their annual HR systems survey, they actually brought us a lot of data too. We were in the room together in our Charlotte headquarters going, what's the experience that the Applicant Pro team or customers rather have compared to the iSolved one? And they're very, very similar. And so when there's synergies between how we treat customers, it becomes a lot easier in that effect, right? But from an integration perspective, it's lots and lots of in-person meetings together, road mapping. From a brand perspective, we quickly wanted to reduce confusion in the market. So for them to come over in the black and pink scheme, and we're still working through the customer experience for those TA customers coming over, that they're now in the community. But what we want is we want to make sure that they have the same customer experience as all of the iSolved people heroes, but in a way that's most relevant to them, because that audience, for example, is mostly recruiters, both internal and external. And so if we put them into the same community as HR benefits and payroll, it's not going to be as relevant to them. So it's kind of baby steps to bring their experience into the full iSolved one, but in a way that's really, really relevant to them. So that's an ongoing project right now.
And then, of course, I always try to incorporate this question because I feel like as marketers, we're under such pressure to prove ROI. And, as everything with AI comes into play and in different factors, marketing budgets are under constant scrutiny. How do you prove marketing's impact on revenue at iSolved when you're dealing with such a long B2B sales cycle?
That's a great question. At iSolved, since we work with smaller companies, it's actually a little bit shorter probably than some of the other B2B companies in the space. And so, with brand, it's always difficult. So what's the impact of AR, PR, all of our efforts with influencers and, going on podcasts and so on. One thing recently that I've been digging into a little bit more for content in particular is our ABM tool. So, we put a lot of content out there. So we do branded research, right? Which isn't unique, but something that we pride ourselves in because it's very consistent year over year. So for example, in H1, we'll have our practitioner survey, and then H2, we have our end users, so the employee surveys. And throughout the year, we compare and contrast the different views of, HR benefits and payroll versus their employees. And over time, that's been difficult to track the ROI of, because downloads really don't equate into anything. So working with my demand gen partners, we actually now have dashboards within SWOT to be able to see how they influence deals. So we're actually able to say this report influenced X amount of bookings, which is a big step, right, in the journey of ROI. Yeah, but from an ABM perspective, I can spend hours and hours, and I have in the tool, because watching the journey of a buyer and the content that they're consuming on the site, and what finally, was the catalyst to requesting a demo. It's so interesting to see. And, for kind of the uninitiated, which was me in the beginning, it's lots of dots, right? Of like intent and what they looked at and what they downloaded.
I nerd out on that type of stuff. I'm going to tell you, I nerd out on that type of thing.
I love it. And to see, how many people from their company came to the site and were on the same things. And so for that, it's very much account based. So it'll take a while, right? But I'm able to pull so many insights. And so when we go into our ROI meetings or our ops reviews, I'm able to say, this is what's moving the needle from a brand and content perspective. And iSolved works with a lot of influencer groups too. So accountants and brokers and financial firms who refer their client to iSolved, and they're more of an enterprise play. So we'll see, 20 to 30 people from their company come on and download, X report or Y report. A lot of analyst reports are popular with them. And I'm able to get buying patterns from that, that then I can actually go to my CEO and say, this company actually had 30 to 40 people on the site, and this was what was most important to them before they requested a demo. So obviously a very evolving journey and something I don't have all the answers to, but those dashboards for my demand gen colleagues and the ABM tools and really just like, pulling up your sleeves or pushing up your sleeves rather, and like going into the data has also nerded me out, Kelly, recently.
I love it. It's like a puzzle and it's always interesting. And then, if you're a pro or a Marcom pro, your brain starts to think, okay, now we can optimize here at this stage, or like maybe let's A/B test this little piece of it. And it's just, I think it's a testament to how deep marketing goes beyond, okay, you put some content together, you did a post, what's happening. There's a whole lot going on between that, putting the content together, to it actually driving some sort of result. And you got to get, like you said, you got to push your sleeves up and get in there after the creative and the fun stuff and look and see what are the numbers saying. So I mean, I think that's amazing that you guys are, that's a norm for you all.
It's difficult, right? Because we get so like involved in the day to day and all of our urgent projects and everything. And it's a real goal of mine to like set aside time to do that, even outside of an ops review or an ROI question, right? And so that's a real personal goal of mine of like spending the time in the data this year.
Yeah. So what's next for iSolved? What do you guys have coming up this year, next year? What's on the horizon that you are super excited about for your team?
Yeah, so in the coming months, we still have two Connect for People here. So those are those customer conferences I mentioned. We have one in Philadelphia in November, and then in Scottsdale quickly after. And Stacey Harris at Sapient is our big keynote there. We have a research initiative with her right now about the perception of HR in their companies. And it's just fascinating because speaking of data, we talk a lot about, HR is seen as compliant versus maybe more strategic. And then so being able to tap into the data that Stacey and team have and say, actually, this is why it's seen as that, or this is actually who in the company is saying that HR isn't strategic. And what was fascinating is, a lot of HR teams are now reporting into finance, but then the Sapient data showed that finance is actually the kind of the worst offender, so to speak, of thinking that HR is not strategic. And so that's a huge perception gap, right? And so we're working with a lot of our people heroes of like, how do you build your own influence within your organization so you're able to, take on those transformation initiatives, you're able to get budget. And so it's kind of full circle of how do we help fix the HR brand for our customers. And, I know that's our soft spot there. So it's really fascinating work. So, and then we're, in the thick of planning for next year already, which seems crazy at this time of the year, but what worked, what didn't, and what's next.
Awesome. Well, that's going to wrap today's show. Thank you to our incredible guest, Amberly Dressler, VP of Corporate Marketing at iSolved. We'll have contact information for iSolved in the show notes for anyone interested in learning more. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next time.